What do you got for me?
I know you're a part of Tight Pants Society. Welcome into episode 2 of Gas, everybody. I am Andy Gresh. That is Jason Anik, and he is already laughing at me. Go ahead. Go on. Give
dude, all
business.
fired up for Gas. But
Yeah.
Gresh, so I said to Gresh in the pre-show, I was like, hey, like he turned his lights on. I'm like, what is that on your shirt? Right? Go ahead, Gresh. I mean, like talk to us. What do we got?
I had a boo-boo on there, and I wanted to wear the same sweatshirt because I didn't wear the one. I didn't want to wear the one with the zipper. And I'm also trying to work a gimmick where eventually we'll be able to put some logos on this bad Larry. But yeah, I had like a smudge on there, and because I kind of changed my lighting, I thought, oh man, this is really going to stand out. So I figured I would do it. And then I sat down and I was like, maybe I should go dry it. And the first thing my partner, Jason Anik, says to me is, no, don't do it. No, it's okay. Don't worry about it, because I knew then I would be cannon fodder to start today's program.
Yeah, just leave it. I mean, you are in some underground location, apparently, so it's not as if you could go like upstairs to your bedroom and change. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I could if I wanted to. I don't have a sweatshirt as comfortable. And no, this is the rubber room at the Puzzle Factory. This is where they send you whenever you start to eventually have your meltdown or breakdown a little bit, like some NFL coaches had this weekend.
Yeah, you can be sure. Well, dude, I'll say, I love being with you, and Gas, Gresh Anik Show, Morning Drive, Gas Morning Drive, Cody Merrow at the helm. I love it, man. I get an hour with you every Tuesday, live, 11 a.m. We got Thanksgiving coming up. But as long as this lasts, and I hope we take it to the moon, privilege for me, bro.
Well, you're very kind. You're also full of ish, but that's fine. That's what a part of the show will be about as well. I know you're very big on the compliments, and yes, we have a lot of fun. However, we're gonna have to needle hell out of each other, because let's get into the biggest stories in the world of gas today. And how about this week in the NFL, Jay? We got Kansas City surviving Carolina 30-27. Kansas City closed at 10.5 or 11. Big time favorite. It's only the second time this season Kansas City has scored 30 points. After the game, old Mahomes was like, boy, you'd like some blowouts. But Jay, didn't you and I get to watch this for 15 years? A team that was highly touted and thought of winning close games during the regular season. Didn't we see this from in the heyday from our New England Patriots, that you're going to have days like this? Kansas City was just able to survive.
No question about it. And they always do get it done. They have lost 5 straight against the spread, and certainly gambling is more prevalent nowadays, maybe than even some of those Patriots years, you can be sure. We're just not as much, nobody really caring as much about the spread back in those days, or maybe not as much volume on all these handles and lines. But I will say for Kansas City, you think about last season when they went on the road and won in the postseason at Baltimore, at Buffalo. We're going to talk about this later, but Christmas Day, they were 9-6 after losing to the Raiders at home on Christmas Day last year and still hoisted it. So playing with house money, I think, here. And hey, a little bit of hiccups. I think we talk about the Patriots, right? And the undefeated regular season. Great for Kansas City to sort of get that loss out of the way and focus on the bigger prize, which is the three-peat.
Here's something amazing about Pat Mahomes, Jay, that I found along the way.
You don't like you calling him Pat, Gresh.
Oh, I don't care. I mean,
I know.
He can't look at me and give me the no resting bitch face the way he does his wife in the famous meme. But Patrick Mahomes is now 19-27-2 against the spread as a favorite of 7 or more. Blew me over with a feather. I never would have thought that number would be that low, considering there are so many games where they're 7 or more point favorites.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and it certainly speaks to the value of the team. And I also see what that ranks 113th out of 114 quarterbacks over the last 20 years. That blows my mind. But you can be sure the Chiefs fans, the head football coach, Andy Reid, and Patrick Mahomes couldn't care less about any of that stuff, right? It's all about the win-loss column.
By the way, quarterback 114 on that list was Mac Jones, just to let you
No
know there.
way.
No, I'm totally kidding. Of course not.
See how gullible I am?
He was going to be favored, and he was going to be a 7-point favorite or more. Come on now. Also, over the weekend, you had Detroit smashing Indianapolis 24-7. Detroit's now 10-1. They closed the 7-point favorites. Indy gave up 3 rushing touchdowns, and I know that on today's rundown, Jay, you and I aren't going to have time for Patriots-Colts. This is actually a game that the Patriots can win because the Colts are hideous against the run, as evidenced by what Detroit did, just running them over.
No question about it. And I didn't catch as many snaps from that game as I would have liked, but some indicated that game was a little bit closer than the score indicated. But man, when we talk about gambling, right? Like, how much money am I going to lose by not betting on the Detroit Lions, right? They're 9-2 against the spread. I do this contest with my brother, the Circa Million contest, every week. Last year, I was all over the Lions almost on a weekly basis. And this year, for whatever reason, whether the 7.5 points scares me last week, and I'm happy to lay the 7.5 with the Texans home to Tennessee. I need to start playing the Lions blindly at this point.
So are you and your brother equal shares in this super contest ticket that you have?
So this year, for the first time, we actually have separate entries. So we have separate entries this year. So we were actually, of course, identical twins, both tied, I think 2 games over 500. Prior to this week, I went 4-1 this week. I think he went 3-2. But it is ruthlessly competitive, and you got to have multiple entries if you have any chance of cashing in this thing.
Yeah, and you can't be afraid of the underdogs. And I know that, excuse me, we're going to go through these Thanksgiving games, and boy, oh boy, home teams are favorites. Home teams are favorites this week as well. And you're right. Sometimes you got to go oppo. Like when you see that the Browns are a skinny underdog against the Steelers on Thursday night, you go, wait a minute, that doesn't look right. And then, of course, Cleveland goes out and wins the game outright. I know that all week, all over social media, you were talking about the Harbaugh Bowl. Boy, we retweeted the hell out of that one. But it is John Harbaugh, once again, who gets it done in winning 30-23 against his brother, John. So John was the pro, the guy who beat him up Jim was the pro, the guy who beat John up all the time, but John's undefeated against his brother in pro football. They were a small favorite last night. They ended up covering, meaning Baltimore.
You know, it really is interesting watching brothers compete. And Jim Harbaugh, before the game, I think he said, it was a great quote. He said, "I'll lay my life down for my brother, but I'm not going to let him win a football game." And when John Harbaugh went forward on 4th down from his own 18 early in the game, I couldn't help but think about me and my brother, right? And there is a weird competitiveness. You can be sure if I'm going to lose a game and my brother wins, all right, at least one of us won, right? And so I really am curious. And John Harbaugh almost didn't. He was like, "Was I that far on my own side of the field?" But it makes you wonder if he would have done that against anyone else. But man, don't the Baltimore Ravens have a way of reminding us who they are in these spots?
They do, Jay. But my issue with them is Baltimore is really good in getting to the divisional round. And then it feels like that's where they kind of hit the ceiling. And even AFC championship games at home, like they've had every scenario to break through and they haven't. And it makes me wonder if Lamar Jackson will ever do it. He's, big in the MVP odds, but I mean, how in the world do they get past Buffalo and Kansas City? Do Baltimore?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? And certainly moved up to 8-4. And I do think they have a great chance to win their division, only half a game back of Pittsburgh. But maybe it wouldn't be the worst thing if the Ravens need to go on the road. Maybe take a little pressure on that 1 seed with the singular bye. But that offense, completely unstoppable, right? And really on the other side, I just want to talk about the Chargers real quick, because a lot of us were sort of drinking the Kool-Aid. And I really wanted to bet Baltimore, and I couldn't find my way onto either side, right? But so the Chargers, right? They have 7 wins and 4 losses on the season, right? Their best win, when you look at it on paper, was probably at Denver in week 6, right?
Yep.
The combined record of the teams they've beat in those 7 wins, 26-52, right?
Whoa.
4 losses against teams with a record of 32-13. I really feel like for LA, that hype train died last night. The defense isn't as good as the numbers suggest. They're still leading the league with the low 15.9 points per game. But look what Baltimore did. I know that's an elite offense, but for me, the Chargers, they're missing some pieces. And while it was a good story to me, falls really flat last night.
Yeah, I think I do think coaching matters, and we'll find out the difference between old Jim Harbaugh and Brandon Staley with that group, because I think they'll be plucky in the wild card round because of the quarterback, and again, they got an experienced coach. But you're right, they're not quite there. But the one thing that you can notice about the Chargers, to me, Jay, is that you can tell the discipline is there. You can tell that.
Yep.
That's a group that's rallying around their head coach, not standing on the sideline, kind of pinching their nose, being like, ugh, I can't believe I gotta play for this guy. But the head coaching firings have started in college football. They're going to start in pro football. We know that Daniel Jones has got cut. Now what we're going to see, Jay, is going to be a ton of fun. The next 6 weeks, the really bad teams are going to have to try to out-bat each other in different ways. So we have both ends of the spectrum. We got people fighting for draft picks, and then we have teams fighting for playoff positioning.
Dude, it really is unbelievable. And I think you were talking about the NFL being mid, right? And when you look at the AFC versus the NFC, the AFC really feels wide open to me, where the NFC really, I look at Detroit and Philadelphia, seem to be in a class of their own. There are a lot of teams, and we'll get to these teams because Thanksgiving, there are a lot of games we're going to get to on that day, but I have some juice on the Dolphins. I think they could make an interesting sort of fly in the ointment, perhaps in that AFC playoff postseason. And the Ravens, to me, became a big problem sort of in a way where maybe we had put them on the back burner. They are most certainly on the front of my radar at this stage.
Yeah, I'm going to the futures right now to see, conference winner and stuff like that. And this is on DraftKings. But right now in the AFC, the odds really haven't moved very much. It's Kansas City plus 200. Buffalo and Baltimore are plus 300. Then fourth in the old numbers game is Pittsburgh at plus 1,300. So clearly, at least DraftKings has kind of narrowed that down as to the three in the AFC. But we've also got a bunch of college football to sink our teeth into this week.
Yeah, you're going to get me to talk about college football. I'm happy to. And I will say, right, and I'm going to call it the junior circuit. Right. But when I look at the junior circuit for college football, for a guy like me who is a casual, I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole this morning because the 12-team playoff really does move the needle for guys like me that don't have the bandwidth to devote my Saturdays to college football. So it's obviously a huge weekend. Notre Dame smashes Army, puts them in the proper place, right? Yep. They head to Trojan country at USC this week. If they win, they're definitely in the playoff. They could really be in. Don't you think they could be in even if they lose at this point?
Yeah, they could be, depending on how it shakes down in other conferences. Yeah, Notre Dame might have wiggle room, and that always irks the hell out of me because it's like, come on, you're going to be the last alone independent. Oh, no. We're going to partner with the ACC, but not really join them. It's like, get the hell out of here.
Yeah. All right, so Texas, 6-point favorites at Texas A&M. The winner will play Georgia in the SEC title game. A couple other notes, then we'll let you jump in here. If Miami beats Syracuse, they head to the ACC title game. And just fascinating for me, right, the opportunity for Ohio State and Oregon to face in the Big Ten title game, right? So Ohio State minus 20.5. Facing Michigan, they'll beat them. And those two teams, best two teams in the land right now for you, right? Ohio State, Oregon?
Yeah, it's Ohio State, Oregon, and then for me, really, it's everybody else. Kalen DeBoer at Alabama, you knew there was going to be a backslide. Now, it's not like going from Bill Belichick to Gerard Mayo, but Alabama's still kind of hanging around the periphery of this thing. Ole Miss ended up taking it on the chin. And now we're getting into the how many SEC teams and how many Big Ten teams are ultimately going to make the playoff. And if you're a team like Indiana, who I was, gassing up last week, they did lose to Ohio State. They got Purdue this week. They turned around and beat Purdue. Their only loss this year is to Ohio State. They're going to get in the playoff, and they're probably going to be seeded pretty decently. Oregon is the overwhelming number one seed unless they whiz down their leg, and they might even be able to lose a Big Ten championship game and still be number one or number two. But Michigan's going to get hammered this weekend by Ohio State. Michigan is not what they once were. The attrition will start with that program with Harbaugh out of there. But you're right. Now we're getting into who's going to make the playoff, who's not. And I'll give you another thing to keep an eye on. One of those group of five teams is going to get in the playoff. and it's either likely to be Tulane or Boise State. And that's another battle for kind of Cinderella, Jason, if you're into that kind of thing in these playoffs.
Yeah, I think Boise has a great chance there. Fascinating that we even take the conversation to Alabama, right? So based on the latest coaches poll, Alabama will be the second team out of that 12-team playoff, behind 2-loss Clemson and ahead of 3-loss South Carolina, Ole Miss, and 2-loss Iowa State. But still, right, they're the highest ranked 3-loss team in both these polls, right? Mm-hmm. If they win this weekend, I believe the chances are 41% that they actually get in. How good is Alabama in your mind? You really think they sneak in?
Yeah, they should sneak in part because of the strength of the SEC. But I'll tell you, it's really Jalen Milroe. I mean, if he played that, everybody talks about having the quarterback in the NFL. And yes, it is a big piece of the puzzle, but it's not the whole puzzle. In college, as crappy Deion Sanders is proving, you can have a number 1 pick at quarterback or a top guy, 2 of the top 3 picks in the draft, and you can still win at a pretty high level, even though you're a terrible coach. And, that's where you wonder, does a guy like Milroe, who's got big ability, does he put on Superman's cape for one night, play the game of his life? And then the next thing you know, Alabama's in a national semifinal where talent-wise they're not going to get outclassed.
Bingo. Well put. So I know you do some color analysis for the collegiate football. I mean, how tapped in are you on a Saturday in college football juxtaposed to the NFL on Sunday?
Pretty much. I'm pretty deep into it because they're doing national radio now. I've got to pay attention, but it's getting a lot easier because now we're just getting to the playoff time, and we need to experience the playoffs once so that we kind of get the feel that the committee's got to go through it as well. This is the Virgin excursion this year for the new playoffs, and there's going to be some mistakes there's going to be an oopsie along the way.
Yep. Well, I know I'm a broken record, but the fact that team 13, it's not that team number 5 gets eliminated, right? Or team number 3 as it did back in the day. So I love it. And a lot of these leagues, right? Everyone wants to talk about March Madness, right? The National Football League is a single elimination tournament in the same way, is it not?
It's going to be awesome when we see tournament college football. It's going to be weird when, it should be let's say, an Oregon home game, but they're playing it in the Rose Bowl because now we got to work in all the bowls and it gets a little alphabet soupy. And just quickly, speaking of playoffs, my Rhody Rams made the FCS playoffs for the first time in 37 years. They're the 10 seed. They're going to host a game at dilapidated Meade Stadium this weekend. I can't do it because I've got the big other New England tilt of UConn against UMass. But good luck to my Rhody Rams making the FCS playoffs. The last team to win any part of a division, 1995, and this guy was on it, but I digress. Where do you land on Thanksgiving versus Christmas, Shay? And I do know that you are Jewish, so I guess I should say, where do how do you and your family handle all of that? And basically what I'm leading to is Thanksgiving a better holiday than Christmas, Hanukkah, all that stuff?
Next to week 1 in the NFL on Sunday, that Sunday is my favorite day of the year, right? Shout out my guy, Tony Farmer on the huddle. He sort of alluded me to that, but no, Thanksgiving Day is definitely my favorite day. And we celebrate Christmas. My wife isn't Jewish and I celebrated a lot as a kid. My religion was football in New England. I'm not blowing smoke. That's what it was. No doubt. And I said this earlier, right? The Patriots, as you know, Gresh, they weren't good for a lot of our youth. And I was still just as into it. So, but no, Thanksgiving, number 1 for me without question.
Yeah, Thanksgiving is the fat guy Super Bowl, even more than Super Bowl Sunday. So I know a lot of people around Thanksgiving will always want to do the draft, which I don't like because you're taking things away from me that I might want on my plate. So for me, what is the perfect Jason Anik Thanksgiving plate?
So I wish John Anik, my twin brother, was here because this dude, and I don't know exactly what goes on his plate, but it's just slop, right? Dude mixes everything together always. Everyone's always sort of waiting for him to sit down at the table and just like whatever it is, fork and knife, everything gets mixed together. But for me, right, I keep it somewhat simple. My mom makes these spinach squares, right? And they sound a lot healthier than they are. They're cheese and spinach and breadcrumbs. And she said this year it's going to be part of the meal as opposed to an appetizer, because I'll whack 10 or 12 of these things and then I'm just in real trouble, right? But my Thanksgiving plate, really simple. Dark meat, okay? Dark meat, right? I like dark meat in a lot of different compartments. Definitely Thanksgiving plate. We don't want the white meat, right? So cranberry sauce, gravy, dark meat, little bit of mashed potatoes, a lot of stuffing, little bit of crispy mac and cheese, right? Like the top layer. I'm the guy that you get up there. They're like, hey, who took the crispy part off the top? It was me. And then my mom makes a little squash souffle that gets mixed in there. But this year we're trying not to overstuff ourselves with appetizers. So yeah, how does that sound to you?
Yeah, I'm as basic as it gets, man. Turkey, mashed potatoes, stuffing, not dressing. You know the difference?
I don't.
All right, so you have stuffing that you put in the bird, and then you
Right.
have the stuffing that gets shoved in the casserole that's just on a casserole dish. To me, you got to get the stuffing out of the bird. That's where the real deliciousness is. I'll go for stuffing out of the bird, but after that, I got to like slather it with gravy, which I don't really want to do if it's dressing versus stuffing. And then corn. I'm simple. I'm very easy.
Love the corn and that stuffing dressing breakdown, Cody. Cut that up. Give me all of that, first of all. Now I know the difference between stuffing and dressing. I know you think I'm kissing your ass. I'm not. I absolutely love that, right? Growing up, it was always inside the turkey. There was no dressing on the side.
Right.
It's the stuffing inside the. So I couldn't agree with you more. Honestly, I don't know. Feels like it's been years since I've had stuffing, Gresh. I feel like I've been eating dressing, calling it stuffing. I might need to call an audible to my mom this year. Great stuff out of you.
Yeah, well, and the other thing that you can do as well is, and it sounds like John goes down the road of almost turning it into like a pot pie or something like that, just cutting it up and mixing everything up. I will say this. I won't go turkey stuffing, corn, mashed potatoes mixed together, but mixing the corn and mashed potatoes is an absolute must.
I love it. So Robbie from Barstool Sports, right?
Okay.
You may not know who he is, but he works for Barstool Sports. He has his own show in my mom's basement or whatever it is, right? His mom, okay, instead of sending leftovers home in Tupperware, right? She has ready-made fucking pie crusts, Gresh. And all the leftovers go into the pie crust.
Oh my God.
Sends it home with all the kids. And then you bake your leftover Thanksgiving pie and eat on that. What do you think of that?
That feels like a little much because I still want to control my leftovers. What I don't want is everything thrown into like a pie, and the next thing you know, there's like green bean casserole jammed in there or something like that.
I hear you.
You know? And
yeah.
I'm not a green bean fan, but I would be worried about something being thrown in there I didn't like. If I had total control of it and I was like, listen, Nana Banana, here's what I need you to put in there, then I would completely be I'd completely be all over it. But yeah, the stuffing versus dressing is the biggest misconception, I think, in the Thanksgiving table world.
I love it. So Cody's asking marshmallows on the sweet potato for you, Andy.
Get the hell out of here with sweet potatoes.
It
just bogs everything down. Good homemade mashed potatoes on Thanksgiving should do the trick.
It's just so fitting that on a Thanksgiving episode, you have a grease stain or whatever it is the size of a mango right in the middle of your chest. It just couldn't work better.
It's a wet spot, you know?
It's just incredible. It's just incredible. So I know we're going to move forward here, Gresh, but I have to do this. I have to rewind quickly to the NFL, right? Because you brought up a great point last week about the running back value in this league. And we were very much aligned just about how everyone's sort of saying, these running backs, once they get late 20s, early 30s, goodbye, right? And so Saquon Barkley, all right, 255 yards on the ground, whatever it is, Philadelphia certainly going to be maybe this biggest problem for Detroit, right? So you may think I'm overstating this, but Saquon Barkley to me is one of the greatest pro athletes of all time. Okay. I've never rooted for Philadelphia before. Now I am. I love him as a human being. Your point just blew me away last week, right? And you talk about some of these running backs, right? Whether it's Joe Mixon, in Houston, Josh Jacobs in Green Bay, right? These new places. You think those teams they left maybe could have used these guys? I just think it's unbelievable. And Saquon to go to Penn State, to now be with Philly and really have a chance to do something special. We can talk about the play where he reverse jumped, hurdled, or whatever it is, and then he lights it up. He has more rushing yards this season than he's ever had before. I'm just blown away. And I had to bring up the Eagles before we move forward to next week.
Well, look at the regular season MVP odds right now. It's Josh Allen plus 150, Lamar plus 275, and then Saquon under 500 for the first time I think that I remember. And I could be wrong on that, but plus 475 for Saquon. And then how about this? Jared Goff plus 700, Mahomes plus 1,300. Who would have thought that the betting markets would have dictated that the number on Goff would be skinnier on Mahomes? Yet that's where we find ourselves with a running back who's got a great chance to win it thrown in there, because if Philly steals the number 1 seed from Detroit, I feel like that's a real difference maker in that individual award.
Took the words out of my mouth. The one-loss record really matters. It really does. And Goff had that 5 interception game a couple weeks back, but they won the game, right? So if he gets through that and they still have the number 1 seed, I think it really could be interesting. We talk about the MVP markets, which last year completely flipped. Brock Purdy was an overwhelming favorite, and Christmas Day versus the Ravens at home, they lose. He throws 4 picks and it gets flipped. So we talked about this on the huddle on oddchart.com yesterday. The MVP markets, a month away from Christmas Day, still, if you see some value, flyers, why not take a flyer? Because these markets do not get decided on Thanksgiving.
And let me give you a quick one before we move on here, because Pat Mahomes, since getting DeAndre Hopkins, right? Mahomes, 1,284 passing yards, 12 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, a completion percentage of 71.3%, and a passer rating of 104.1. Now, look, right, but that's what we think. Those are Patrick Mahomes numbers, right? But that's with a great player like Hopkins. So if you're wondering who's one of these guys down the stretch who might be able to kind of pull everybody in, Mahomes might be that guy at plus 1,300 because of DeAndre Hopkins and the presence those two guys might have kind of down the stretch. And you could see there on the screen, you got Mahomes at plus 1,300. I think Herbert, Hurts, Burrow, those, I think we're really down to 5 because, Jay, there's no way I can roll Pat Mahomes out of an MVP race right now.
Great point. And as we talk about the one-loss record, certainly that could be in his favor as well.
All right, so you can follow us everywhere. Folks, if you're watching on YouTube, thank you. Of course, my man Nelson, who's my best friend, sends it. Now, again, this is what I get for listening to Jason, right? So instead of me taking a hairdryer and drying my little wet spot on my sweatshirt and looking like a normal human being, is like, no, it'll be good, it'll be funny. So now I get a text from my best friend saying to me, what the F is going on here with my giant, wet spot on my sweatshirt? So thanks for that. But
yeah, well, what, at 10:57, you're going to go get a hairdryer? I could not believe that you weren't like, I'm just going to go grab another sweatshirt. Maybe it's, what do we got in the sleeve? Is that a Lucky sweatshirt? Is that what I see, a neon green logo on that sweatshirt?
No, it's a car. No, it's a car.
I like it.
That's all.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, it's made for large people is really what it is. And I don't have anything as comfortable. At Boston Anik is where you can get Jason on all the socials. You can get me everywhere, including YouTube, which is where this show airs each and every Tuesday at 11 a.m. You can get me at The Real Gresh. That's Gresh. Don't add a C in there like some people are want to do. Anik versus Anik with the folks at Odd Sharks every Thursday at 11 a.m. And he's going to hit you someday.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt. John is definitely he wants to hit me.
Yeah.
He wants to hit me. And, we were talking about the Harbaugh brothers in terms of being competitive. And I promise you, Gresh, I am not competitive with John. John is competitive with me. Okay. If we play pickleball and I win, racket could get broken on his side. If he wins, no rackets being broken. I'm under control. He hates losing to me. I don't mind losing to him.
So he would be the one who would lose to you, talk junk, and knock your paddle out of your hand to kick you in the face.
I'm glad you brought that up. Yes. And for those of us that joined us last week on the inaugural debut episode of Gas, we played this pickleball video where a guy got kicked in the face. And I'm kind of regretting my take a little bit. Maybe it was a little bit callous. Well, Robin Black, who is a mixed martial arts journalist, right? I think he pushed something out. You know who he is? Bink, right? Shout out our guy, Robin Black, great human being and a talented guy. But yeah, he put something out there like, that it was disgusting. And I was like, ooh, I was messing around a little bit, but anyway, I digress.
Well, that's because you know that you have a brother that people think is the nicest person in the world, but would have kicked you in the face in the same spot. So
no doubt.
I think it's a normal reaction. I don't think you should have to apologize for it whatsoever. And, that's just it's more of the dynamic that we're learning about you Anik boys. Let's put it that way.
Well, like when we were in high school, and I was a freshman, there were these seniors and they would walk around and my brother, had a shaved head and like a beard at freshman year, right? And would wear just, would just dress a bunch of baggy clothes and they would call him bad and me good, right there. Oh, that's funny. But no, so I was good, Anik, and he was bad, right? So they would see me in the hallway. They'd be like, good, right? And John would come by. They'd be like, bad, right? Anyway, what do we got?
That is awesome. The good and the bad Anik.
Good Anik and bad Anik. Yeah. All right, Chris, sorry. I'm going off the rails.
No. Listen, it's totally okay. I've got some, as we're plugging stuff here, you've got Odd Sharks on Thursday. I've got ESPN Radio nationwide Wednesday and Thursday night, 7 p.m. to midnight on the big network. And then Friday night, I'm back on Mad Dog Radio. And then I got UConn minus 10.5 at UMass. UMass made some news, unfortunately, this weekend, almost canceling their senior day. But I think they got 53 guys that are leaving the program because of COVID. So it's an enormous ceremony, but just start the game a half hour late. To me, it's really not that hard. But as we are to do here on Gas, we're going to keep it moving because we have to get into the grand old game, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, where you can go to a ballpark and get yourself a giant wiener with a Coca-Cola and some sort of other snack to watch men run around boringly playing the game of baseball. But yet, our producer Cody Merrow and Jason Anik are sitting with their boners in hand because there's a 20% chance that Juan Soto might become a member of the Red Sox. So I do not want to be a balloon popper. I said last week I'm not expecting Soto to go to the Red Sox, but I know this week Smiling Sam Kennedy came out and was like, we're going to spend some money. So I know you got the peanut butter out and you're ready to just rub it all over your nipples. Go ahead.
Well, I was until that came out of your mouth. What are these odds here? Yeah, 18. All right. So I know they're not going to sign Soto, but will you humor me for like a minute?
Sure. You know what? I had a friend, an NFL friend, who once used to call this imagination land.
Okay,
so please,
that's fine.
Enter imagination land.
All right. So Alex Cora, right? And don't take it from me, right? I've loved Alex Cora for a long, long time, right? The fact that he had that little suspension, even is gone for a year and they bring him back, right? Juan Soto is Dominican, right? He grew up watching the Red Sox, watching David Ortiz. I understand the Red Sox might not be in that sort of upper echelon, and who knows how appealing they are or not, but I promise you that Alex Cora is appealing to go play for. I really believe that he is. And I'm going to read David Ortiz's quote. Okay, take it from him. Quote, in Boston, he will have the best manager in the major leagues, who is Alex Cora, in my opinion. Cora is a guy who has unique chemistry with his players, and I would like to go back 15 years to play for Alex Cora. Any player who cannot play for him and will not be... who cannot play for him will not be able to play for anyone because he is a brilliant guy, and anyone who does not learn from him has no common sense, right? I will say, I don't think they're going to sign Juan Soto, but this would go a long way to forgiving the Mookie Betts trade. I think it's up to Soto, but I ask you, like, do you think, I know it's imagination and you're going to laugh at me, but there's no way the Red Sox would come up to where maybe the two New York teams or the Los Angeles team would come in terms of money, right?
I wouldn't think so. And that's why I'm so down on stuff like this, and why when we showed the betting market that it was the Yankees at minus 225, because John Henry operates the Red Sox as if there are limits, and everybody wants to turn it into, well, it's Liverpool, it's this or it's that. No, John Henry didn't want to pay Mookie Betts. He's one of the best players in baseball. What does that tell you about the mindset in that organization? And that's what really gets me, because look, do I think Juan Soto can go to Boston and survive and play well? Of course he can. He's a really good player. But you already had the guy there in Mookie Betts.
Right.
And you didn't want to pay him. So now you're going to turn around. And I do believe Betts got, what was it, about $350 million? There's rumblings of maybe having to go to $600 million for Juan Soto. Is he better than Mookie Betts? I'm not so sure. He's just the guy of the moment. So that's what gets me, Jay, is that we're now looking at it and being like, hey, now we can make up for stuff. Yeah, 5 years down the road when you had the guy already under your nose. I just don't know what they see there. It's like they got beer goggles on all the time.
Yeah, your points are really well taken. And I think ultimately the dollars, I remember my younger brother used to say to me when I would talk about some of these signings, he would be like, yeah, it's not my money. I don't care. And just, we would sort of be privileged being of a big market team. And I just don't think, as a Boston Red Sox fan, I am a fan of a big market team in the way I was before. It does seem like they're trying to tease us here, but let's say they were like, all right, we're going all in on Soto. We'll go up to 600, right? That's not all in. You know,
it isn't. You're right. You still need 2 starting pitchers. You still need another bullpen arm.
Right.
You know, I know that you and Cody are all into this, but there's Burns, there's Fried, Snell is out there as well. Crochet is available in trade. Here's the other wild card factor in all this that we can't predict. The agent, Scott Boras. Boras is a guy who knows, he might take Soto into early February, for God's sakes. Now, I don't think he will, but he can, and he's done it in the past.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's the thing about baseball. There's no, when in a free market like this, it's wide open. I think it's all going to come down to where Juan Soto wants to play. And I do think there's a slight toe in the water chance that Alex Cora and David Ortiz, you know, Fenway Park is a really unique place. It really is intimate in a way no other ballpark is. Like, I went to Wrigley. I sat in the front row at Wrigley. It's not the same. Old Yankee Stadium was majestic to me in a way maybe the new one isn't quite the same. And maybe playing in an organization that is a little less sterile does appeal, right? And if the Yankees, part of this too is taking him away from New York, right? To me, whereas if the Red Sox can get him and have the Yankees not sign him, I think that matters too. I'm going to be as excited until it doesn't happen, I guess.
Well, and I also think too that if you need an owner to push it over the edge, John Henry is not exactly Mr. Electricity to walk in a room and be like, hello, Mr. Soto. It's nice to have you here. And he like, want fire. Like, oh my God. He is a part of the problem there, because you're not closing any deals with baseball players with that guy, in my opinion. So we mentioned our perfect Thanksgiving plate. Excuse me. And we have Thanksgiving Day games to handicap and kind of get through here. Can I ask you this? Is it time to change the Detroit plays the first Thanksgiving game tradition? I'm not saying to boot them off of Thanksgiving Day, but are we at the point now to where maybe Detroit can play the second game? Or is that a part of your Thanksgiving?
That's a great question. I kind of don't mind leaving them in that spot, right? Okay. It's kind of like, you know, the Patriots were really the basement of the league for a long time, and then they became sort of the top of the league. And I'm not putting Detroit there now, but I don't mind it. I think they're going to be good for a while. I like getting it going right out of the gate. So for me, leave them right there in that spot. Hopefully they get a more competitive opponent. I don't know, man. This league is funky, man. Watch Chicago play the best game of the year on Thursday. You know
what? Honest to God, it wouldn't be the craziest thing that's ever happened. But we've got Chicago at Detroit in game 1. Detroit big 10.5 point favorites, 48.5. And this is among the rare times where we've got like some touchdown props up and things of that nature. But Detroit came off smashing Indianapolis. I do think you make a fair point. Institutional knowledge, divisional game. Chicago might play up for a little bit. 10 and the hook is a ton. Where do you lean on day 1 Thanksgiving?
Lions at Lions. We talked about it earlier. 10-1 overall, 9-2 against the spread. And ultimately, even if the Bears hang around, I just don't think they keep up. I don't think there's too positive a buzz right now in the Chicago locker room. I think Ebersol's days are numbered. Maybe he gets through the season, but I think they're foolish if they don't make a change there. But, for me, looking at propositions on some of those games, I'll probably wait till it gets a little bit closer, look at some injury reports. But I love the Lions almost as like blindly just playing that number to me. I also think it's a quick turn, right? Next Thursday, they host Green Bay, I believe, next Thursday night. So I think you got to get through this one. And, they talk about trap games. I don't believe in trap games when Dan Campbell's your head football coach and this team is firing the way they are. Their schedule is not too not too easy down the stretch. And I think they got to take care of business here, and I think they do. So I'm looking at the Lions minus 10.5 is the only play as of now for me.
It's difficult in part because you've got the 10 and the hook. Maybe at 10, you figure, okay, at worst, I'm going to get a push. The 10 and the hook is what's really getting me. And on paper, there's no question. The Lions look like the better team. At 10.5, I do wonder about a little bit of a backdoor cover, but the Lions are rolling right now. I'll tell you the one thing I think I do like is the under in this game at 48.5. I think Detroit can put 30 on the board themselves. So you would think, I don't know about the under then, but that's where I start to lose confidence in a young quarterback that could maybe end up getting swallowed up on the road. I do like Sam Laporta anytime touchdown. That's in right now at plus 205. Game 2, Giants suck right now. They got rid of their quarterback. They're playing at Dallas. This will be a battle, Jason Anik, between Cooper Rush and Tommy DeVito. Your thoughts?
Isn't it just so? I hate the way these contract works where, all right, they're going to shut a guy down, right? And then Daniel Jones just gets released. It's just silly. It feels almost like phony, like it's not true to the sport in a lot of ways. But I guess I don't have recency bias, but I would have to lay the 4 here with Dallas. It's just hard for me to imagine the Giants competing here. Micah Parsons is on the field, and I believe in his leadership in the locker room. You think he wants to win on Thanksgiving? You can be sure. So, and whether it's DeVito or Drew Luck, I'm not sure why Luck hasn't gotten the chance. I don't really fully understand that, but that's not good in the locker room. We talk about tanking, right? And I said to you, if I ever bring up tanking, I'm sort of saying it tongue in cheek and not seriously. Like, I really want the Patriots to try and win every game, but the organization is tanking here as a player on the Giants. Malik Neighbors is not happy at all. So I think Dallas with Mike McCarthy, I think they haven't been eliminated yet. I think they probably are still sort of playing for one another more than the Giants. So I would gobble up those points, swallow them, and take the home team.
So there's a great website for those who don't know out there. It's called tankathon.com. And you're laughing because you've been on it before, because what it shows is where teams are at in the draft pick race. And you have Jacksonville at number 1. And then, Jason, to your point, the Giants are in there at number 2 at 2-9, with Vegas at 2-9 right behind them. And then New England at 3-9 right now, holding the 4th pick. This tankathon.com website is at its busiest on Sunday nights because everybody is running to the computer and saying, where do we stand? Where do we stand? And I see Vegas lost 7 in a row. Giants lost 6 in a row. Jacksonville lost 4 in a row. It's going to be really hard, I think, to outsuck those teams down the stretch. And the Giants might be the team, Jay, that's kind of leading the way. Although Cooper Rush, 200 or more yards passing, that's a minus 115. I'm with you that I think the Cowboys end up winning this game and covering. So I like some of those stat props for some of the Cowboys players. As we move along here and gas the final Thanksgiving Day game, Miami at Green Bay. Green Bay is a 3.5-point favorite. Total is at 47. This is Miami's arguably maybe their toughest test the rest of the way. And I know I need to peep their schedule again. You're in the belly of the beast down there. You're hearing a lot about the Dolphins right now. However, I don't like them going to Green Bay at minus 3.5. And I wonder if weather becomes a factor for the track meet Dolphins in this game.
Well, I'm glad you bring up the weather. I think it's supposed to be in the 20s, and this will be the spot for Tua, right, to prove people wrong, right? Jameis Winston did something last Thursday night in the cold he hadn't done before in the snow. But I saved sort of a little of my thunder from early in the program as we looked back at last week, because I really do believe in Miami. And I felt as though, right, they've won 3 straight now, right? And I felt as though if they could get to this spot at 5-6 against Green Bay, they really have an opportunity to sort of get in and maybe make some noise, right? So certainly a more desperate spot here. I absolutely love them here. And I do feel as though if Miami wins this game, I agree with you. I think this is the toughest game. I feel like if they win this game, they're in the playoffs. And if they lose, they really are out. I think if they lose, they could still squeak in. But like you said, the schedule not that daunting at all, right? I don't think the Packers are as good as their 8-3 record. Jordan Love, 61.8% completions, 18 touchdowns, 11 picks. I really love Tua when he's not concussed. I hate to say it like that, but right. So last 2 games, right? 75% passing, 7 touchdowns, no interceptions, right? He's completing 73.3% of his passes on the season, right? That's not 69%. 73.3 is a real number, right? Mm-hmm. Defense for Miami, giving up the 6th fewest yards per game across the league. I bet on them 30-1 to win the AFC. They're 75-1 to win the Super Bowl. I think the AFC is more wide open, right? A team like Buffalo, perhaps, you know, they played them well, right? They've 30-27. I think they lost a couple weeks back. You have a division opponent, Miami. I think if they can prove they can win in the cold, they could be real dangerous. I do think it's wide open. So for me, I like the 3.5. I like the number there. I also like the money line plus 145. I think it's a make or break spot, and I like where the team's going.
So that's at Green Bay from Miami. Then you get the mini bye. Then it's the Jets, who are tanking right now. At Houston, that's a wobbler right there, because where is Houston going to be sitting in their divisional race? Then you got Houston, Houston, San Francisco, Cleveland, and the Jets. So it is all in front of Miami if they can find a way to get past this one here in Green Bay. Couple of other games to touch on, Jay, while we have some time here before we have some fun before we're out of here on episode 2 of Gas. The 3 big games arguably on the rest of the card outside of Thanksgiving and then the Black Friday game. The Black Friday game is Las Vegas at Kansas City. Kansas City minus 13. Is it as simple as just go with the Chiefs and have the game on in the background Black Friday? That's what it feels like for me.
Yeah. And, you know, I am, John and I do a show, which is Anik versus Anik, my brother, and we pick games against the spread. So that's my sort of DNA. Floating with props at this stage, not my favorite thing to do. But yeah, so we did say earlier, Kansas City has lost 5 straight against the spread. But Patrick Mahomes wants blowouts, and I think he gets one here, right? The Raiders beat Kansas City at Arrowhead. We talked about this. That was Christmas Day last season. You can be sure Patrick Mahomes remembers that, sent them to 9-6. I just think it's a great opportunity. I don't think they play with their food here. It's going to be 34 degrees. I don't love that for the Raiders. And so what do you have? Desmond Ridder and Antonio Pierce at Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. Raiders have also lost 7 straight overall, 3 straight against the spread. I don't think they cover the spread here. I just think Kansas City runs away and hides and gets off that sort of against the spread schneid, if you will.
Yeah, I feel like underplay here as well, 42.5, and you nailed it. Yeah, you got Las Vegas, who is not great anyway. They're going to go on the road in the cold against Kansas City. God bless them. 3 other games on the card. The Cardinals are at the Vikings. The Vikings are 3.5-point favorites. Apparently, the Vikings are taking a look at maybe having Daniel Jones as a backstop once he kind of clears waivers and they figure out that situation. But I don't believe in the Cardinals. And I haven't because of the little guy who everyone gets insulted when I call him calamari, because calamari's little tiny rings of delicious goodness. And every once in a while, calamari will give you some rings of delicious goodness and then turn around, wet his pants, and look like a tiny person in the pocket. Give me the Vikings all day long. I don't believe in calamari one bit.
Yeah, it's hard for me to disagree. This Cardinals team is so Jekyll and Hyde. It's a little bit difficult to handicap them. I think a lot of people were very excited to see what they could do going into Seattle and sort of establish themselves. And then they throw up all over themselves. And then you'll see that's the way this league works. I agree with you, by the way. I love Minnesota. I love what they're doing. They had that little 2-game losing streak sort of hiccup in the middle of the schedule. They've righted it. They won 5 straight, lost 2. Now they've won 4 in a row. I like Minnesota too, but this league, right? right? This will be that spot where Kyler Murray lights it up. He looks like the number 7 overall draft pick in the baseball draft a couple years back, right? And shows the athleticism. No, I'm with you on the Vikings, but this league, right? There's
Oh yeah,
the Texans lost at home to the Titans last week, right? So that's a game that scares me from a standpoint, not having recency bias, and think the Cardinals can sort of maybe bounce back.
my reaction is more of the, yeah, that's Kyler Murray. That's what he's all about. He'll show you the flash, he'll give you some sizzle, and then the guy doesn't win consistently. So my reaction was not towards you. It was more of,
Fair.
you know, the narrative of Kyler Murray and everybody doing the no pants dance for the guy. Eagles are at the Ravens. The Ravens are -2.5. They're on a roll. They're double tough. But to me, these are a lot like two teams sort of looking themselves in the mirror. At the end of the day, they would both, I think, love to run it 50 times a game. But it might come down to which quarterback just makes a big throw in a big spot.
No doubt about it. And you could say game of the year. I mean, especially on the heels of what the Ravens did last week. And imagine the pressure on the Ravens if they had lost last night and you're looking at 7-5 with that Philadelphia outfit coming in town. But I think the seeding, even though these teams have different records, I think the seeding component really is going to matter for both of them. I think this particular game, not only for these teams, but the teams that are sort of competing with them, that number 1 seed, when there's only that one bye, really does change some things. And I think for a Detroit Lions team, they're going to be rooting hard for the Ravens that week, but I can't get enough of that game.
Yeah, and they could be, and these are the odds to make the playoffs by team. And you could see just some of the wild swings. Now, I know like Tennessee sunk like a stone. So did, the Jets ultimately as well. I don't think Cincinnati is going to find their way to the playoffs when it's all said and done. So, you look at some of these teams in terms of making the playoffs, and Houston is -22,000 for God's sakes. And good job by our guy Cody of pulling that up. And that leads us to the final game, which is Sunday Night Football. You see the Buffalo Bills right there on the old odds to miss the playoffs and make the playoffs. It is the Bills hosting San Francisco. Buffalo -6.5. Jay, what is happening to the 49ers? I might as well tear up my Super Bowl ticket on the Niners at this point, because I'm not fit. They might struggle to make the playoffs, which I never thought would happen.
I agree. I think before last week, they were +200 to make the postseason, and I don't think they do. And I was in that compartment of thinking, the 49ers will figure it out. Oh, they're going to be that dangerous team down the stretch. But I've said on the Huddle, the show on OddsShark, right? My 2 co-hosts are 49ers fans, and they are tapped into this team in a way that you and I are not, and they are not believing in it. They don't think they're as talented as they were before. Haven't liked what they've seen since Christian McCaffrey's come back. I don't really like the leadership out of Kyle Shanahan, dare I say it. So this game, while it could have been really interesting on paper, I didn't peek. What's the line on that game, Gresh?
Right now it's Buffalo -6.5.
Yeah, and we'll see if Purdy plays. That game doesn't pique my interest too much as of this moment, if I'm being honest with you. I think San Francisco, dare I say, almost at that stage of playing out the string.
Well, San Francisco is also one of those teams where it's, they're healthy, or they're healthy enough, and then the next thing you know, they end up finding a way to outscore people and eke out some victories. I'm down on my San Francisco going to the Super Bowl ticket. However, I'm not ready to count San Fran out yet, and the Bills are the Bills. I just hate the Bills because Buffalo's a toilet and their fans are idiots and all that kind of stuff. Don't forget, you can get us on social media, including this show where you might be watching right now. Go to youtube.com/@therealgresh. Subscribe, rate, review. Tell us you hate the show, you like the show. You want to flip us off? Fine. There were people this week, and the one thing I've learned about Boston Anik, he wants all the smoke. If somebody's going to yell at him, say you're a bum, whatever it is, he wants all that stuff.
Yep.
You can send it to us at Gas Show AM on Twitter and Instagram as well. So make sure you're following us everywhere so that you can yell at us or peg us the finger or make fun of us for having a spot on our sweatshirt.
Gresh, you know what my favorite? I love negative comments about myself.
I know you do.
I think I told you about this. I'm paraphrasing. I really need to find the comment, but it was something like, wow, it's amazing how listenable John Anik is compared to his identical twin brother that sounds like John on 1.5 speed with this mosquito like pitch. Ha! Now I've that's funny, Gresh.
That
Now
is impressive. I have to give him that. I
now
couldn't disagree more.
I appreciate that too. But now I died laughing the first 10 times I uttered that phrase. Now it's sort of become part of my vernacular, but that's pretty high level. And yeah, we're looking for the smoke. You can be sure.
Yeah. And be creative. Like, a lot of
Like
it,
that.
a lot. Yeah. Like that. Yeah. A lot of it is nowhere near as creative like that. All right. So we're going to bring home this edition of Gas with a little bit of fun, a little bit of frivolity, and a little bit of stupidity. How about this? So I'm trying to pause. Okay. So, Jason, we have the folks at Sunday Night Football lauding Mike Tirico for showing up to work to call a football game with a torn Achilles. Now, let me just remind folks, okay? This is a guy who gets probably 20 million a year from NBC, made a ton of money at ESPN, right?
Yeah.
All right. He's taken private jets from his home in Michigan to wherever he's going. And then they, put him on an elevator and prop him up in the booth and tell him to turn around and call the game, in which your ruptured Achilles has really no bearing on your ability to do the job. It's not like the guy's going to get up on Saturday morning, and get in my truck and drive 100 miles to go call what will be a bad college football game where there's no food in the booth or anything like that, and there's no booth producer, and you turn around and you waddle your ass down and you drive your 100 miles home. What are we doing here, Jason Anik?
Yeah,
We're wanting a guy who has all of the private accoutrements to make it as easy as hell. If he wants to fly with his dog like Herb Street, he can. And we're lauding him for showing up because he had a torn effing Achilles. Get out of here with that crap.
Oh, couldn't agree with you more. He probably had a producer for the chair that his leg was resting on.
Oh, yes.
And what I will say, we don't even know what happened. So so can you tell us how you injured? It must have been super embarrassing, Mike. And with respect, Mike, I don't believe you were competing or doing anything athletic when it happened. It was right. But tell us the story. Give us some juice, right? I don't need to see the shot of your leg. Tell us what happened. That would be of interest to me.
Yeah, given some history, maybe bedroom gymnastics were involved. Now that would end up being a story.
Right.
Have you seen what I would dare say is the biggest hardo equipment guy in all of America, all the land? I'm talking pro and college football. So Jim Nagy, who used to be a Patriot scout, is the guy who runs the Reese's Senior Bowl. And it's the big event that everybody goes to kind of watch these players coming out of college football and into the pros, right? So Jim's scouting the world to bring in the best talent for that Reese's Senior Bowl. And then Jim tweets out, I have a spot for this guy on one of the sidelines at the Reese's Bowl. Go ahead and let that roll, Cody. So you see the guy in the gray sweatshirt, right? So people storm the field. A guy runs onto the sideline to grab a piece of equipment. Now, there was a distractor, and then the guy who grabbed the helmet. Look at this guy. He hawked him down. Now, this is what's best. Watch this guy. He gets up. He shoves him back again as if, how dare you try to come on my sideline and do something like this? So great job there. You see the tweet by Jim Nagy. If anybody can identify that guy from Cal, that guy, because of that play, is going to the Senior Bowl, even though he ain't going to play.
Unbelievable. And he almost reminded me sitting there of like Jorge Masvidal before he knocked out Ben Askren. He was just sort of sitting against the fence. And as soon as he saw something, I mean, what a 40-yard speed. If you clock that, they clock these NFL guys. I mean, that's pretty good wheels out of the kid there too, huh?
No doubt. And they had the kid who was like doing the distracting because the guy's head was turned and then he catches him out of the corner of the eye. This guy is the Batman of equipment people. And
unbelievable.
And Jay, there's no way that's the real equipment guy either. That's like the assistant who is trying to get hired full time, or like the grad assistant who's there finishing a degree who went and hawked that guy down. And then I love the shove at the end. The guy got up like he was going to do something and then he freaking shoved him right back down.
Absolutely. Oh, great stuff. Give me all that.
Yep, I'm here for all that stuff, definitely. And how about these? How about a little bit of a false narrative? Do you think this weekend in college football is like having playoff games? Because we're not there yet. There's a feel like the conference tournaments in college basketball give us a certain feeling, but it's not cranked up all the way the NCAA tournament is. I know you're not the biggest of college football guys, but you live in a part of the world where people do care about this stuff.
No, it's a great point. It's a great analogy, I think, and a perfect analogy when you talk about the collegiate conference championship games. And, look, the U down here, that's interesting. No question about it. And even if it's polarizing down here. One of my friends who went to University of Florida, right, who lives down here, is not happy with what's going on. And most certainly is not looking for the University of Miami to make any type of noise in the college football postseason. But I will say, I think in this particular season, there will be guys like me that get into this, not now, once that 12 is established, and then maybe that gets us into it as we move forward into future years. But to me, it comes down to bandwidth, and I'd be lying to our audience if I said that I have the bandwidth to get myself caught up to college football. Gresh, I would need to do like fantasy college football to wrap my head around these players the way I want.
My God.
No, you get it though, right?
Yeah,
to wrap your head around it, but no thanks.
And so Michigan, Ohio State, big rivalry. Texas is looking to punch their ticket to the SEC championship game, which we will get, in my opinion, Texas and Georgia. And then it becomes bracket madness. And that is it for us here on this edition of Gas. Great job by Cody Merrow keeping us on the straight and narrow each and every Tuesday at 11 o'clock. Where sports and gambling mix. We try to give you enough gambling along the way as well. Make sure you subscribe, youtube.com/@therealgresh. That's where you can get Gas. Get us on Instagram and Twitter at Gas Show AM. And you can get Jason Anik on Twitter and Instagram at Boston Anik. At some point, we're going to create the Twitter handle of that other Anik just to bust your brother's balls. Now, where's Thanksgiving? Your house? Or John's house?
My mom runs that whole show. Like I said, she's upstairs right now with my girls. We just got to talk about stuffing versus dressing, Gresh. You set me so straight on that, bro.
I like it, brother. I'm handling everything. I'm about to brine the turkey tonight to make sure that everybody gets their delicious goodness, because I need everybody to clear out of my damn house so I can get some work done on Wednesday and Thursday. We'll be back here next Tuesday, 11 a.m. for another edition of Gas. We will see you then.